Like, you've done so much great work. Was there ever one that you thought, I wish I hadn't done that one?
Oh, you know, you've always got, when you're a songwriter, you think they're all good. It's like how everybody thinks their kids are pretty, even if they're not.
Dolly Parton, more than just a name, right? It's also believed that her name carries power and an indispensable aura when mentioned. She was the queen of country music with a unique voice that was as big as her heart. As she climbed the charts and lit up stages with amazing performances, one quiet question followed her throughout her legendary career. Why didn't the famous and adorable Dolly Parton have children? As expected, there were rumors and speculations, but one thing was sure, it was all lies. Now, at 79 years old, Dolly breaks the ice, revealing a shocking truth. Want to find out? Then stay tuned. The big question.
Well, it's good to be back with you, and I'm glad that you'd have me on. I've been out promoting this movie. I feel like a politician.
From the moment Dolly Parton fearlessly stepped onto the country music stage in the late 1960s, she unapologetically became a force the world could not ignore. Her amazing voice, dazzling smile, and sparkling personality made her an icon almost instantly. However, behind the glitter and stage lights, one question followed her relentlessly. It was asked in interviews, whispered in tabloids, and puzzled her most devoted fans. Why did Dolly Parton never have kids? No teenage daughter or hidden son anywhere. Curiosity about her personal life really increased as her career took off, and she won numerous accolades. Dolly wrote more than 3,000 songs, starred in major films, and opened her theme park, becoming one of the most influential women in entertainment history. Yet, for many people, the most surprising part of her story was not her success, but her decision not to embrace motherhood. This single choice became the question that clung to her name, a puzzle that people felt entitled to solve. Society has long expected women to become mothers, especially women of Dolly's generation. Born in January 1946 in a small cabin in the Great Smoky Mountains of Tennessee, Dolly was the fourth of 12 children. Her parents, Robert Lee and Ivy Lee Parton, raised their large family with strong Christian values, a deep sense of community, a profound reliance on faith, and of course, immense love and affection, despite their size. From an early age, Dolly helped care for her younger siblings and often acted like a second mother to them. It was only natural that many people expected she would eventually have children of her own. However, Dolly did not want to live the same life as her mother. She aspired to be a celebrity since she was a child. Music was her escape and her calling. At the age of 18, she left home and moved to Nashville the day after graduating from high school. She was determined to make her mark, and that ambition guided every step of her adult life. During the 1970s and 1980s, as she became one of the most successful country artists of all time, interviewers began to focus less on her music and more on her private choices. Do you want children? Do you regret not having any? Are you choosing fame over family? These questions came again and again. As expected, Dolly always answered with grace and humor, but she rarely gave the full story. She hinted at deep personal reasons, but chose not to reveal everything. Her private life remained hers, even when the world demanded answers. Some people believe Dolly simply never wanted children. Others guessed she had health issues, or that her career left no room for motherhood. What many did not know was that she had indeed suffered from medical problems. In her early 30s, Dolly began to experience health-related complications, and then, by the time she was 36, she had undergone a partial hysterectomy. The procedure ended successfully, but left an unforgettable scar, making Dolly feel lost and deeply emotional. She later described that time in her life as one of her darkest. She faced depression and physical pain while trying to maintain her bright public image. The grief of losing the chance to have children never completely left her, but she chose not to dwell on it. Instead, she focused on what she could give to the world. Over the years, Dolly began to open up more about her life as a childless woman. She shared her personal beliefs on the matter. However, she never provided a clear answer to the big questions, allowing the media and bloggers to spread rumors and speculation about the truth. In one interview, she said that if she had become a mother, she probably would not have been able to give her career or the world the same attention. She believed that her purpose was to love all children, not just her own. To express her love for God's little gift, as she called children, Dolly supports children's hospitals, scholarship programs, and countless other youth-focused charities. Her life has touched the lives of millions of children worldwide. The question of why Dolly Parton never had children has followed her for most of her life. However, maybe the answer is not a sad one. Maybe it is a story of someone who turned personal pain into purpose, who chose to love without limits. Dolly Parton may not have given birth to children, but she has mothered a movement. In doing so, she demonstrated that family is not always defined by blood. Sometimes, it's about how much love you're willing to give. Let's have a look at Dolly's life behind the camera and the paparazzi. Dolly's silent struggles.
The first time I was ever here was, I guess it was in the late 60s, early 70s, and I had just started making a name in country music, so...
No matter how Dolly tried to hide it, the scars were still visible. Behind every bright smile and rhinestone-studded gown, Dolly Parton carried silent struggles that the world knew little about. While she built one of the most dazzling careers in country music history, she was also enduring emotional and physical battles that shaped the woman she became. For decades, Dolly chose to keep much of her pain private, protecting her image and inner peace. Over time, she began to reveal that her journey to stardom came with more than just the spotlight and success. It came with heartbreak, health scares, and years of unspoken sorrow. One of Dolly's earliest struggles began in her 30s, during a period when she should have been enjoying the height of her career. Unknown to fans at the time, Dolly was diagnosed with endometriosis, a condition in which the tissue that normally lines the uterus grows outside of it. The condition caused her intense pain and complications that eventually led to a partial hysterectomy. Unfortunately, that meant she would never be able to carry children of her own. Dolly later described the experience as one of the darkest chapters of her life. At a time when fans were celebrating her chart-topping hits and sold-out shows, she was secretly recovering from major surgery. The emotional toll was even greater than the physical one. She admitted in interviews years later that the realization she would never become a biological mother devastated her. For someone who had always loved children and had grown up helping to raise her younger siblings, the loss was personal and profound. The physical pain from her condition was matched by emotional weight. She fell into a depression that she kept hidden from the public. As someone who had built a career on joy, humor, and positivity, Dolly found it difficult to admit that she was struggling. She kept performing. She kept smiling. However, behind closed doors, she was grieving the life she might have had. In some of her rare, candid moments, she confessed that she questioned her worth and even battled suicidal thoughts during that time. The pressure to maintain her public image only made things harder. Dolly was not just a singer, she was an icon. People expected her to be funny, fearless, and full of sparkle. She had become a symbol of hope for so many, and she did not want to let anyone down. That kind of responsibility weighed heavily on her. Rather than speak publicly about her pain, she channeled it into her music. Songs like Me and Little Andy and Down from Dover reflect deep emotions of loss, longing, and maternal sorrow. Fans connected to those songs without always knowing the personal struggles behind them. In addition to her health battles, Dolly also faced emotional challenges in her marriage. She and Carl Dean got married in 1966, but their relationship has always been kept mostly out of the public eye. While they have remained committed to one another for decades, Dolly has shared that their union has not been without hardship. The pain of infertility affected them, even if it was never openly discussed. Dolly once said that she believed they would have been great parents, but also admitted that not having children allowed their relationship to remain private and focused. There were also periods when Dolly felt overwhelmed by the very fame she had once craved. The demands of her career, the constant travel, and the need to be on at all times left her emotionally drained. The more she gave to the world, the less she seemed to have left for herself. It was a difficult balancing act, and one that caused her to retreat at times to protect her mental health. Through it all, Dolly chose to face her struggles with resilience. Though she stayed silent about many of them for years, her later interviews and memoirs reveal a woman who endured tremendous pain with dignity and strength. She never allowed her suffering to define her, but neither did she pretend it did not exist. Her silence was not weakness, it was her way of coping in a world that demanded constant happiness from her. In recent years, Dolly has become more vocal about the importance of mental health, self-care, and honest living. She now shares her past experiences not to gain sympathy, but to encourage others who may be suffering silently. Her journey is a powerful reminder that even those who seem to have it all can struggle in ways no one sees. Keep watching to find out how Dolly handled everything: faith, fate, and letting go.
I think a lot of my self-confidence too is that I'm grounded in the spirit as well.
It is believed that Dolly Parton has never been one to move through life without intention. Her deep sense of purpose has colored every song, every business deal, and every public appearance. Beyond the bright lights and iconic wigs lies a woman whose most defining decisions were made not from ambition, but from surrender. When it came to the subject of having children, Dolly's journey did not end in a medical diagnosis. It unfolded through her faith, her belief in fate, and her ability to let go of what she could not change. Raised in a devout Christian home in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee, Dolly's understanding of the world was shaped early by prayer, spiritual songs, and sermons that echoed through churches and mountain air. Her faith was not a performance or a temporary fix for pain. It was a steady undercurrent that carried her through every twist and turn of her life. When the reality of never having children began to settle into her life, it was that same faith that gave her the strength to release her personal dreams without bitterness. Letting go did not happen in one moment. It unfolded in stages. At first, there were the quiet hopes. The idea that someday she and her husband Carl might welcome a child into their lives. Those thoughts were often unspoken but deeply cherished. As time went on and her career consumed more and more of her energy, she began to sense that perhaps motherhood in the traditional sense was not meant for her. Then came the clarity. Health complications prompted the decision to take a more definitive course, but rather than despair, Dolly began to ask different questions. She once shared that instead of asking why this happened to her, she began to wonder what she was meant to do with the space that motherhood would have filled. She searched not for explanations, but for direction. In that sacred space between grief and grace, her perspective shifted. Dolly strongly believes that fate is not about helplessness, but about divine timing. She has always trusted that her life is being guided by something bigger than her fame or fortune. She sees herself as a vessel for something meaningful, whether that takes the form of a hit song or a comforting word to someone she may never meet. That belief gave her the freedom to view her childlessness not as a loss, but as a redirection of her life. This mindset did not come without struggle. There were seasons when she felt a quiet emptiness, moments when holding a friend's baby or attending a family gathering brought a flash of longing. Each time that feeling surfaced, she returned to the belief that she was chosen for a different kind of path. Her faith became a filter through which she processed her emotions. She allowed herself to feel the sorrow, but she did not let it define her story. Letting go, in Dolly's case, was not passive, it was active and intentional. She consciously stepped away from the expectations that society placed on women, especially those in long-term marriages. She chose to live truthfully, without apology. She embraced her version of completeness, one that did not require children to validate her womanhood. In many ways, faith taught her that motherhood could be expressed in other forms. She became a mother figure to her younger siblings, to her nieces and nephews, and to countless fans who saw in her a kind of warmth and wisdom that transcended bloodlines. She created the Imagination Library, which has delivered millions of free books to children worldwide. Through that program alone, she impacted more young lives than she ever could have in her own home. Fate, as she describes it, is not always kind, but it is always purposeful. In surrendering her personal desires, Dolly found herself on a path that allowed her to give love in ways she never imagined. Her songs became lullabies for children she would never meet. Her words became encouragement for young girls dreaming of a bigger life. Her presence became a beacon for anyone who ever had to let go of something dear. There is a particular kind of freedom that comes from surrendering what we cannot control. In Dolly's case, it unlocked a vision for a life that stretched far beyond what she once imagined. Once she fully stepped into that acceptance, she discovered that the space left behind by motherhood was not a void, but something entirely different. A blessing in disguise. For Dolly Parton, not having children was not an end, it was a beginning. It became a door that opened onto a path few women of her era could walk without compromise. The absence of motherhood did not make her life smaller. On the contrary, it gave her the room to imagine, build, and dominate without restraint. It freed her from the schedule of school runs and soccer games, giving her the luxury of chasing ambitions as big as the Tennessee sky she was born under. In the fiercely competitive world of country music, careers could be short-lived, especially for women. There was constant pressure to choose between personal life and professional longevity. Dolly refused to be boxed into that decision. With no children to raise, she poured herself wholly into her work. She was not bound by nap schedules or school calendars. Her time was hers. her energy undivided. While many of her contemporaries were navigating the chaos of family life, Dolly was outworking, outthinking, and outdreaming the competition. She recorded albums with relentless consistency, performed for crowds night after night, and used her offstage hours not for rest, but for reinvention. She experimented with new sounds, crossed over into pop, and collaborated with artists that kept her music evolving. There was no pause button. She had the stamina of someone with a single driving focus. Each record, each tour, and each project was another rung up the ladder, and she climbed it without looking down. However, it was not just music that benefited from her singular devotion. Dolly built a brand around herself long before celebrity branding was a mainstream concept. She turned her name into a symbol. From the Dollywood theme park to her line of wigs, perfumes, and merchandise, every decision was strategic. She cultivated an image that was both playful and powerful, and she protected it with the instincts of a seasoned businesswoman. She was not simply the product, she was the producer, the planner, and the force behind every move. Without the responsibilities of parenting, she had the flexibility to travel extensively, to say yes to sudden opportunities, and to take risks that might have been impossible with children at home. She never had to step back from a tour because of a school recital or a sick day. Her focus remained sharp, uninterrupted by the everyday demands that pull so many women in different directions. It allowed her to dream bigger than the borders of domestic life. Beyond the spotlight, her freedom also manifested in her philanthropic reach. With no heirs of her own to shape or provide for, Dolly expanded her sense of family to include entire communities. She poured resources, time, and her heart into causes that might have been sidelined if her attention were split. One of her most remarkable achievements, the Imagination Library, is a direct result of this widened sense of maternal care. The program mails free books to children across the globe, cultivating a love of reading before kids ever step into a classroom. She not only funded the program, but also lived it. She stayed involved, tracked its progress, and ensured its continued growth. It became one of the clearest examples of how not having her own children allowed her to become a guardian of millions. With her hands untied, she reached further. Where other stars might be remembered for their hits alone, Dolly ensured she would be remembered for her humanity. She gave and then gave more, never needing to reserve anything for a household of her own. Her philanthropic legacy also extended into disaster relief, scholarships, and healthcare. When wildfires ravaged parts of Tennessee, Dolly stepped in with financial aid for hundreds of families. When the COVID-19 pandemic struck, her donation helped fund vaccine research. She was not bound by personal obligations or schedules. She was able to respond quickly, generously, and often quietly. Her life became a living example of the power of unfiltered compassion. And none of it required a child calling her mom. Dolly's freedom allowed her to say yes when others had to say no. It gave her nights alone to write songs that would change lives, time to study contracts and grow empires, and the solitude to evolve into a woman who answered to no one's timeline but her own. She used that freedom not for selfish delight, but for selfless contribution. She made the world her home and every stranger her extended family. In a culture that often defines women by what they nurture in their wombs, Dolly redefined legacy through what she built with her hands, heart, and time. She never pitied herself for what she did not have. Instead, she celebrated what she could do. With no distractions and no pauses, she soared higher than anyone expected, higher than most dared to try. The life she created was not a consolation prize. It was a masterpiece designed on her own terms. The story does not end there, because in the very space that freedom carved out, something else began to take shape. A bond, a love, a partnership that defied every stereotype and expectation. It was in that space that she and Carl Dean built something, but in the long run, something happened. Keep watching to find out. Her love story with Carl Dean.
No.
Really?
Well, he's from Tennessee, but I met my husband the first day that I moved to Nashville in 1964.
When Dolly Parton first laid eyes on Carl Dean, it was anything but ordinary. She had just moved to Nashville to chase her dream, and he was a quiet, grounded young man working in asphalt paving. They met outside a laundromat in 1964. Dolly, barely 20, was fresh-faced, full of big dreams, and bursting with charisma. Carl, on the other hand, was simple, reserved, and uninterested in fame. She was the bright spark. He was the calm in her storm. Their chemistry was instant. What followed was a whirlwind romance that no one expected. For a girl chasing a music career in a city that chewed through relationships like chewing gum, settling down should have been out of the question. Carl was different. He cared about her. Within 2 years of meeting, the pair tied the knot in a secret ceremony in Ringgold, Georgia. Dolly wore a simple dress, Carl wore a suit. No press, no guests, just quiet vows and a camera to mark the beginning of what many believed would be a lifelong love story. In the early years of their marriage, everything seemed golden. Carl supported Dolly through her grinding early days in the music industry. He cheered from the sidelines but refused to walk the red carpet. He kept their home life stable while she hustled through auditions, late-night shows, and studio sessions. They made an unlikely team. She was the fiery performer, while he was the invisible anchor. As Dolly's star began to rise, cracks began to show. The demands of fame are not gentle on private love. Dolly's schedule became chaotic. She was always on the road, performing, traveling, and building her empire. Carl, who valued solitude and detachment from public life, grew increasingly uncomfortable. He never attended her concerts and rarely appeared in public with her. The distance between them was not just physical, it was emotional as well. Despite this, they shared something deeply personal behind closed doors, the desire to build a family. For years, they discussed having children. Dolly often spoke about wanting a house full of laughter and little feet running through the halls. Carl dreamed of being a father. In private, he expressed his longing for a traditional home life, something more grounded than the public persona he presented to Dolly. In the late 1980s, Dolly faced a series of health challenges, including a partial hysterectomy that left her unable to have children. The decision was devastating. For Carl, it was not just the loss of fatherhood. According to him, it was the collapse of a dream they had both quietly nurtured for years. He felt blindsided by the finality of it. The woman he loved had built a world so full of success, yet their most personal hope had slipped through the cracks. Carl never made a public statement, but those close to the couple said he changed. His disappointment was not dramatic. It was subtle, heavy, and quiet. He pulled back even further from Dolly's world. The conversations between them turned careful and distant. Their emotional intimacy cooled. Though he never walked away, it became clear that the marriage was strained. There were long periods when they lived almost separate lives. Dolly continued her tours, performances, and business ventures, while Carl remained in Nashville, far from the glare of cameras. He rarely traveled with her, choosing instead to remain in their Brentwood home. Despite being husband and wife, they began to resemble parallel lines, always moving but rarely meeting. They respected each other's spaces, and even in the silence, there was a strange loyalty. The topic of children faded from their conversations. Dolly buried herself in work and philanthropy. Carl accepted her decisions but never fully escaped the ache of what could have been. His dreams of bouncing a baby on his knee and of watching his wife as a mother quietly dissolved. Dolly, for her part, often said she believed she was not meant to have children because it would have changed the course of her destiny. For Carl, that destiny cost him something he had quietly counted on. Unfortunately, after years of endurance, love, and affection, Carl passed away. According to the reports, he sadly passed away on the 3rd of March, 2025 at the age of 82, ending their nearly 60-year-old marriage. No kids, no mistress, no illegitimate son. Carl must have been a strong man to stand by Dolly even after everything, don't you think? Childless, but still a mother to millions. Dolly Parton may never have had children of her own, but she has never let that stop her from nurturing the world's children in ways many biological mothers never could. Over the decades, Dolly has redefined what it means to be a mother, choosing not to bring life into the world, but instead to pour life, love, and light into children she may never meet. Her heart has proven boundless, and her legacy of care is undeniable. Perhaps the most profound expression of Dolly's maternal spirit is the Imagination Library, a program she launched in 1995 to provide free books to children from birth to age 5. What began in her home county of Sevier, Tennessee, has now grown into an international movement, mailing more than 200 million books to children in the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and Ireland. Through this effort, Dolly has helped raise generations of readers, many of whom consider her their book grandmother, even if they have never seen her in person. Her devotion to children extends beyond education. she has quietly donated millions of dollars to children's hospitals and research centers. In 2023, she funded pediatric cancer research initiatives and personally visited children's units to deliver joy, music, and the warmth of someone who genuinely cares. Her songs may have taken her to the stage, but her soul has always leaned toward healing. What is most inspiring about Dolly's approach to motherhood is that it is entirely selfless. There are no strings attached, no expectations of thanks or recognition. She once said in an interview, "God did not let me have children so that every kid could be mine." It was not a bitter confession, but a powerful statement of purpose. Dolly did not allow the absence of children in her womb to define her. Instead, she gave birth to programs, ideas, opportunities, and hope. Just last year, she partnered with Scholastic to release a new series of children's audiobooks narrated in her voice, with lullabies and life lessons that are now playing in classrooms, nurseries, and hospitals around the world. Even now, at nearly 80, she continues to cradle youth with kindness and generosity, ensuring that no child feels unseen or forgotten. Do you believe motherhood is defined by biology, or can it also be measured by the lives you choose to love and shape? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more content. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.